There are several fun and inspiring new sequencers in the event processors in the 2.5 update, and I want to start by looking at the Cartesian sequencer. Here's a marimba sound, so pretty plain, and I'm going to go to the event processor at the program level, and under script processor, I'm going to go to sequencing and call this up. So we have forward, backward, or split double trigger mode. So in forward mode, it's going to play the steps on the grid from left to right and then the next row. And in backward mode, it's going to go from upper right to left and then the next row. And then we have what's called the split double trigger mode, where it plays the upper left depending on the speed that we have set here for the x-axis. But there's also a y speed setting. So let me just show you how this works. Now we mouse drag up here to set the transposition value for each step, and we can go in positive or negative values to get transpositions above or below the note that we're playing. And here I'll set this, let's say, at eighth notes, and I'll just start a little groove going so you can hear what's happening. So it's going from right to left and then the next row. And I can choose whatever mode I want. Let's go with Mixolydian. Now, if I go to the split double trigger mode, this becomes active. So right now it's creating harmony notes at the end of each row, but let's change the speed here. I'll put this to, let's say, dotted quarters. And you can see it's moving in the diagonal now as well as horizontally. And you can get interesting cross rhythms by putting different speeds on the different axes. We have gate time for the duration. And this will react differently based on what sound you're using, of course. Now the grid size is 4x4, but we can change it. Here we have a 5x5 grid for a longer, more evolving rhythm pattern. And you can get wilder if you want. There's a triplet offset. Doesn't work with that drum groove. For this kind of tempo and groove, I like this kind of offset. Now we can also initialize the grid and then randomize it to create random transposition values. Randomize it again. So it's preserving these values in the top row, but randomizing the transposition. We have auto mode, which enables an automatic randomization at whatever interval of time we have set here. So every half note, it's going to auto randomize. So it kind of makes sense for longer, slower evolving randomization when you're working with bigger grids. Let's try this. So there's randomizing every bar. Let's go to a smaller grid. Here I've got a new sound called up. And we're going to look at another sequencer again at the program level under script processors and sequencing. We're going to call up WaveSequencer. So here we set the parameters for each note. We can set a speed that can either be synced to tempo or free. And let's say I'm going to start by holding an A. So it's going every half note there. I can change the speed. Let's make it every whole note. And we can have different gate times. That's a longer pulsing note versus shorter like that. And the panning is where it gets interesting. We can pan each note individually to the right or left, anywhere in that field. We can alternate. We can randomize based on a percent or have none. So let's say I set that and I'll go to an A or a C next, and I'll leave that at half, and I'll make that a shorter gate time. And maybe I'll go to an E and we'll set that to, let's say, yeah, quarter note, dotted quarter notes. And I'll make that a bit longer. And let's set the panning random there as well. And I'll go higher. And here I'll go alternating like that. There's my half notes there. I'm triggering on an eighth note, so it's on the offbeats. There it is on the downbeat. So I got random panning happening in random rhythms on each of those notes. Make this one shorter. Kind of interesting. Now over here, we can link the parameters together so that when I change one, they'll all change to the same value in this case. I can use that to initialize everything, and I can use this to randomize them to different values. Let's unlink them and then randomize, so there'll be different values. Some of them are clocked to tempo, some aren't. Of course, we can go in and customize, and so we can do the same thing here. We can link them, and then when I change one, they'll all change. I'll unlink them, reset them, and then here, randomize them, different values, and then we have the same thing for the pan position. And finally, we can have unique polyphonic aftertouch on a per note basis that we can turn on or off here. We can invert the direction with the arrow key, set the depth of how much modulation the aftertouch is going to generate, and we can again link the parameters as we're adjusting the values. We'll continue with more in the next video.